So how can there be primitive changes over there? So we're not going to attempt to explain it like the Rebbe says. I'm just going to make you realize it. If you follow my direction. And if you don't, you won't realize it. Exactly what the Rebbe is saying. The hechech.
What does the hechech imply?
That it's imperative, a logical imperative.
I guess when I grow up I'll understand.
Right. We all are attempting to do that. All right, so we are towards the bottom third of this top section, 8 lines from the bottom. The line begins with keili. The oidi shleima. What?
Oh, that's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is, yes.
8 lines from the bottom. Yeah.
Oir, as we already recognized in the last several days, and prior to that, Oir has a completely different set of parameters than keili. If you recall, when we first, at one point when I discussed keili, we pointed out that the principle of keili is that you take material on the lowest level of keili, take material that is totally unrelated to your thought. To you, it's a part of the world, and you form it in a certain way that would represent a thought that you have. Or the idea, you take this material, whatever it's called, and you form it into a form of a cup to be able to hold water. This guy doesn't know anything about holding water. Not a question of knowing. He has no relationship to it. The fact that it has no relationship to it is very important. Because that way it means that you are putting water in an object that will not debate with you, will not dispute you. So you put water in there or not, they just let you do what you want to do. And it's totally defined by you. So that this becomes a real keili to the water. If the keili had a mind of its own, it would not really be a keili. The idea is to put the water in such a state where it lends itself to be used as you prefer, as you want it. The same is in sechel. The idea of putting sechel in words, in sentences, in phrases. Words, as we have learned, they are formed of letters. Letters in themselves are totally neutral. They allow you to manipulate them any which way you want. But as a result of that, you can present the sechel at the state and the level where it's totally independent of its source. So that you can present the sechel to someone else who is not a part of your brain, who does not have your sechel anything. You present it to him, and now he can dig into it with his own sechel. This brings back to mind what I've mentioned many times lately. A sechel itself is not being presented. It is a means for you to for you to use your sechel and draw from this sechel. You can't put sechel into somebody else's mind. The expression is you can't put a head on somebody else's shoulders, no matter how hard you try. A well-presented sechel is a sechel that is presented in so to speak, in a neutral environment, in the world, and now you being in the world, you see it and you're able to draw from it and reveal your own sechel.
Is it because it must be that way?
It must be that way. It must be that way.
Because there's no thought to thought.
It must be like that. I'm just going to give you the illustration on a lower level. Henry Ford developed cars. The cars formulated in his mind. Say he developed the car perfectly and remained in his mind. Would you have anything out of it?
But that's a gushing.
It's the same thing.
Same by words and communication.
The same thing exactly. You take the words contain the sechel. The car will not carry unless you get into the car, unless you learn how to drive it. On your own. The fact that he says, no, this car moves, it's not going to move you. It doesn't move on its own. It's exactly the same. This is the idea that it's a keili. That's what a keili. A keili is formed of the parameters of the material of the world in which you're presenting it, not of your sechel. In contrast to the oil. Oil always remains with you.
Going way back when we spoke.
Let me finish this.
Yeah.
Oil always remains with you. Think of the following. You present a sechel. You can present it, and the sechel, you present the sechel properly. You formulate it into, as I said, into phrases and sentences and words. You're presenting it. Say if you present the sechel without any intonation, what's called a monotone, perfect monotone. Attempting to you present it in perfect monotone. There you will be presenting the keili, and not showing at all your oil. But it would not be implying that you understand what you're saying, that you're involved at all.
Vorige keer. Sabbat nog helemaal vertellen.
Therefore, the proper intonation in the presenting the sechel, even the presenting words, is important, because that calls the attention to the recipient. Hey, this really has a life element to it. It represents a life element to it, and that kind of brings it closer, arouses the interest and the feel for it, to try to understand it.
This is an example of or.
Right. But this oil is representing how the one who is saying it understands it. Doesn't make you understand. The value of it, how it affects the listener, is that he sees that you're excited about it. So that tells him there's something exciting about it.
So, in a sense, that's also just a keili, not the or.
This is what we call chitzonius ha'or. It's not keili. It's chitzonius because this is still connected to the source.
So the words themselves, that's the keili.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Tell him it's a chutzpah.
I think I get the principle, but we do seem to say that it's Loshana Kodesh and the letters are themselves holy, or they're not like the foam that made the cup.
They are.
They are.
Yeah. You brought it down. They have a source, and they brought it down all the way down.
Into
But
words. The down is the
into
words.
world.
Words are the down.
Yeah, the words and the letters.
Are the down.
Yeah.
But contrast that we didn't find the letters down here. It's not like raw materials that
Yes,
I
you
make
did.
clay into a cup. I received
No,
letters from...
no, stop. You're not thinking what you're saying. How do you write letters? This paper came from your mind, or the ink?
I didn't form it. And
No,
nor
you
did-
didn't. You
and
didn't
nor
form
did
it.
the
You
reading.
didn't form it, but you, as a child, played with paper.
I did it on paper, yeah.
You know what paper is
Okay.
before you started learning. He didn't show you the letter in space, in air. Showed you on a piece of paper, and you tried to put your finger on it.
Uh-huh. That indicating the keili element here. then.
It's not indicating that is relating to the keili element.
Fine. I guess, okay.
And similarly, the spoken word is the same.
The spoken word is the same, clearly at a higher level than the written letter word, but it is the same. The Haraya, we have now words presented rabbinically. Can you imagine that?
And that's not to say the letters are...
Some time before we couldn't give an example of it, but now we can see clearly.
We're not saying...
And further, you yourself can present the word, like I said, you can read the words in a monotone. It may be a little difficult, but you could.
Divorced of an or, you could.
Okay. Yes, sir.
We're not saying the letters are worldly, though, right? I mean, they're still kadosh, but they're kelim. Is that? It's not. I mean, we had the mashal of the cup where it seems like you take an unrelated raw material and you make a keili. Masha'in can by oisius. They are remaining in the realm of kadosh, but they're not worldly.
I'd like you to analyze your own words before it becomes a problem. Before you say, I have a question. This cup, once it's formed into a cup, it is a cup. It's not raw material anymore.
Yes, okay, so.
Someone asks you, what is this? What would be your answer?
It's a cup, but the starting point and how you describe keili, the origin of kelim was you find stuff, you make from material.
And the purpose is to design it in a way that will contain some oil.
Yeah, Masha'in can seems by oisius.
It's exactly the same thing. You cannot form oisius without having paper or ink.
But again, I'm receiving them, I'm not forming them. I didn't invent language or letters. Maybe...
You did not invent language, you did not invent letters, but you take those letters and put them on paper. And this paper was not handed down. The paper is part of the world. And the ink is part of the world. I say it again. If a car were to remain in the mind of its inventor,
we're talking about the Gashmias, not the Oisius, not Gashmias.
you have to put it has to be calmed down. In Gashmias, it means something which is part of the world, not part of the inventor. This is the idea of a keili, that now this can be handed over to someone else. This is where you take an idea, or whatever it is, an idea, an emotion, and translate in the keili. You give tzedakah. Tzedakah represents a certain, of course, it's a mitzvah, but besides that, but from the human perspective, it's a chesed, it's kindness. How you translate kindness in Gashmis? But tzedakah is money. Money. And if it were not money, which can buy anything else, then you're not giving him tzedakah. Children typically are rewarded for good work, for learning and studying by heart. They're rewarded, they're giving money, they're giving all kinds of different things. Let's say if they were given money, and this money attests to the fact that they worked hard and they really achieved. Let us say that this money remains at that state. All it is that it shows that you achieved. But you cannot take this money and cash it in the store. The child can take this money to the store. And he says, see, I achieved. So the storekeeper says, yeah, he benched the kettle and all that. Can I have a candy? I don't say anything have to do with candy or anything. All I see is that you should be praised for achieving. This is keili. Oir is a completely different realm, different reality. Oir, the reason there is oir is because this is representing a truth, an etzem. Therefore, oir at any level. That's the lotion over here. No matter how far down it is, still bechinas oir. It still tests as oir, meaning it still tests as something representative of the source. And in order to resolve this dilemma, that there is in tzimtzum affecting oir, which means that after the tzimtzum, the oil is a different caliber, different kind of oil than before. They came to a new concept. That in oil also there is pnimis and keili. So on the revealed level, that we can readily identify. But we have to point out that there is pnimis and keili in the etzem of the oil. Which means because this is the etzem, this is the source of the oil. To say that there is pnimis and keili in the source of the oil, the source of the oil means at that moment where it is emanating from the source, from the etzem, that is very difficult. And the only way we can argue with the point is, look, there is that element, and the gilui has to be in the etzem, in the source. Okay, let us continue. And then furthermore, another thing that can be said about explaining the Inyan, how tzimtzum affects oil. But we're talking about oil, not the hisgalus of oil, but the oil at its inception.
But what's the difference between those two statements? The tzimtzum at its inception?
No. The oil at its inception. The tzimtzum affects the oil not only in his galus oil, but in the essential in inception of the oil. The source of the oil.
Meaning that it's not tzimtzum is not something that's, so to speak, occurring due to something external to the ore, but it's to perhaps the quality or value of the ore itself.
Whatever causes the tzimtzum is one thing. The point is that if tzimtzum is applied to oil, it affects it. The question is not where the tzimtzum comes from. The question is, how can tzimtzum affect oil? Oil is representative of the etzem. How can tzimtzum affect it? If you have a curtain on your window, and it's a heavy curtain, but some light, you can see that there's light on the other side, some light permeates through this curtain. Light is blocked, and you can't really use this light much, but nevertheless it's light. What would you call that light?
just diminished power.
Light.
Yeah.
You
Light,
give it a
that's-
different name than light. It's still representative. It still tells you it's light outside. It will still tell you it's daytime. This is what a dilemma is. Why is it a dilemma? Take it back to the beginning, because we are saying that the tzimtzum allows, prepares the oil to be established in keili. This is what we don't understand. Oil is not affected by the tzimtzum. It remains oil.
In the example of the shade, we're pointing out that. Are we pointing out that the ore was not affected, and therefore, so to speak, we're challenging, in this example, we're challenging whether the tzimtzum changed the ore.
Yeah, that's exactly the
And we're
question.
saying seemingly not.
Well, that's exactly the question. Exactly the question. And the Rebbe says the only way I can explain it, the only thing that we can point to oil is that in oil there is pnimis chetzenius. In oil itself.
Seemingly not, but it seems that it was. It
That's
was
right.
affected.
That's right. And why do I insist that there's pnimis chetzenius on the gilui? There's pnimis chetzenius on the gilui. There's pnimis chetzenius in its inception. This is one way, first step, first presentation, not an attempt to explain how tzimtzum affects the oil. The oil yesh leimar, our time is up, just want to get into the next line. The oil yesh leimar, and another thing that can be said about this is the hinein is boil yield. Behold, we have explained earlier. Perek Tesvot, the shorosh ha'oiros hu b'china shem havaya. Shorosh ha'oiros, this is the inyan of Shem Havaya. והנה, בהאוירס המסלבשים בkeili. We talk about the oiris that are finally, ultimately mislabish in keili. The bekolam hu shem havaya. Wherever the oiris are found, whether they are in oir, in purely the oil, or mislabish in keili. Bekulam, all everywhere it is the shem havaya. Harei noida. However, it is known sheyesh chilukim, that there are differences. Behashem havaya, in Shem havaya itself, there are different ways of presenting Shem havaya. Shem havaya is essentially Yud Kei Vav Kei. How this Shem havaya is presented, there are different ways, and that is behanikud shebei, and how it is vowed, how it is pronounced. Ukmoi b'keser, as an example, in keser, Shem havaya b'nikud komets. In keser, the Shem havaya is presented with the komets. Komets means a komets under each one of the four letters. Ubechachma, and then bechachma. The chachma is atzilus. Benikud patach. There it is. With the nikud of patach. Just want to point out an interesting Ayin that hits home a little bit. That Yom Kippur, after Kol Nidrei, we say for Kippitach Tili. Not the term, this is the first thing, but for Kippitach right after Kol Nidrei. And if you look in the Machzor, it says he should say the for Kippitach Tilim, Benikud Chirik. Now then each letter is with a chirik. Why chirik? You look in the Siddur, it's printed with a chirik. Because chirik is the nikud is bivris. Bivris, they say nikud bivris. And the idea of this Porcupine is that has a song that should not occur any kind of tumor on Kippur night. So this is a sgula for that.
What's bivris mean?
Huh?
What's bivris?
Bivris in covenant, a bris.
Oh, bivris. Okay.
We're supposed to pronounce the Tehillim differently?
No, you pronounce it the number, but you have the mind. Mechav in bivris, nikud bivris. You have a machzor, I'll show you. Right there. All right, we will interrupt now.
It's like E. That's how you think of it.